Okay, I'll talk. Now that Jellystone Park's kishkas are all in a rumble and a royal, time has come to talk. I'm Doran Ellen Beldotan, and I'm from Tzfat in Israel. I've been allowing nature to very ably and amply speak for itself, because I knew that you had to feel and experience certain things if there was going to be any hope of you understanding what the truth is when it's explained to you. You needed a little meat tenderizing first. What I'm about to say herein, please God, I have, with God's help, prepared the way for in earlier conversations, and now we're kind of going to put it on the table more clearly. The Messianic age in which we now are, and the fact that I have to tell you that, means that it is not as either the rabbis or the Christians think of it and describe it. The Messianic age is brought about when the laws, as they're written in Torah, are successfully translated into the laws of nature. And this is something that the rabbis were not able to do, and clearly Yeshu was not able to do it either. Such that we're no longer talking about laws that are written in books simply. Sפרים in Hebrew is equal in value to the word שמים, which means in heaven. In other words, the laws of God are no longer just written in heaven, they become translated into actual laws in the creation, in the physical world, on earth and beyond. When the rabbis were banished from Israel, it wasn't a simple population transfer from one geographical locus to another. It was the removal of them from the blessed estate in which the laws of nature and the laws of Torah, and by the way also the laws of Hebrew grammar and syntax, are all one and the same. They were no longer learning on a level that allowed them to successfully translate Torah into reality. And when that happened, that was the banishment from Israel. They could no longer create Israel. Israel is not a place where you arrive at by plane or by boat or by parachute. One has to be able to create it. And they were no longer able to do that because they had so rebelled against the teachings of the judges and the prophets that their understanding of Torah was not sufficient to be able to translate Torah written in the books into Torah living and actually being experienced in reality. It's exactly the same process as what happens if a sperm cell does not find the correct egg cell that knows how to read the code, decode it, and then build up an embryo and then a fetus and then a live birth reacts as a result. If it's not an appropriate receptacle for that sperm cell, nothing's going to happen, which is precisely what happened. The rabbi's consciousness was no longer a fitting receptacle for God's wisdom. You hear Sfarim, a sperm, it's the same word. They were no longer able to become pregnated with God's wisdom and actually give birth to a Torah reality. And that is what people refer to as the fall. People attribute that to what they think Adam and Eve are. In fact, Torah tells us that it is Israel who is called Adam. Yes? So when Israel was no longer able to translate Torah, to understand it correctly, such that the laws of the laws of Torah, the laws of the Hebrew language, the grammatical and syntactical laws, and the laws of nature were one and the same, they found themselves in a level of reality in which there are still laws of nature, but they're all kind of garbled. And there is a delay between cause and effect, such that people sin and not seeing an immediate reaction, they think they get away with it. Then all of a sudden something happens to them. A day later, 2 weeks later, 20 years later, they're living in another place. All of a sudden they get hit back on the back of the head with some kind of an emergency situation or some sort of trouble or whatever forms trouble can take. In reality, they don't know where it's coming from. So they think that they're innocent victims. They didn't do anything. And now all of a sudden, I've got this problem. All of a sudden, things are falling apart. All of a sudden, there's some sort of an emergency that I have to deal with. And they think that things just sort of spontaneously arise because they cannot make the moral connection between what they did and its reaction, which surely will come, but with a delay and not translated exactly such that it may not be recognizable. So they think that they're living in a world of accidents and spontaneous events and so forth and so on. That is the way nature worked under the not very successful stewardship of the rabbis as a result of their not very successful interpretation of Torah. And then Christianity inherited this errant and arrant tradition and took it to its horrific logical conclusions, and rather than fixing the rabbis' mistakes, actually exacerbated them. All it takes to be able to translate what Hashem writes in the book of Torah into Terah, which is living Torah, actualized Torah in physical reality, is a consciousness that's able to understand it correctly. It's able to take that genetic material, break it down, see it in its component parts, and be able to configure it into a viable being. Any Jew potentially has the ability to do that. Whether or not we actualize that is a matter of how serious we are about doing that and being able to do the work on ourselves that is required in order for that to be done. We are now then in the translation of Torah law, which is one and the same as the laws of grammar and syntax in Hebrew and natural law. On my group, Techiyat Malchut David on Facebook, I have proven that the expression Chok HaTeva, which means the law of nature, is equal to 194, which is Tzedek, which is justice. Chokei Teva, laws of nature, is equal to 199, which is Hatzedek or Tzedka, which is righteousness with the definite article. Chokei HaTeva, the laws of nature, is equal to 204, which is Tzav Chok, two different words in Hebrew for law, and it is also equal to Tzadik, which means a righteous person. A person who genuinely learns Torah in justice and with the intention of justice is taught how to translate Torah into the laws of nature. The rabbis were not able to do that. Yeshu was not able to do that. If he could, he would have. Walking on water is very small in comparison to being able to translate Torah into the actual laws of nature, such that they are justice itself. And there is no delay. That is to say, if a person acts unjustly, the laws of nature themselves will immediately pay that person back what is coming to them. If we do good, we get paid in kind. If we do bad, we get paid in kind. Whether or not you believe me makes no difference whatsoever in the fact that these laws are now in force. You're most welcome to laugh at me and mock what I'm saying, but I guarantee you that if you do, there's going to be a river or a volcano somewhere that's going to wipe the arrogant smile off your face. I'm giving you fair warning that we are now living in a world in which nature itself has been commissioned to respond to us immediately and in kind. The conditions that we see in a good part of the world are very, very worrying. And of all the worrying things that are going on, the fact that Jellystone Park has been cordoned off because of floods should be the most concerning. The reason why America is being plagued with problems with water both droughts and floods is because you misused the water for your quote-unquote baptisms, and in so doing traumatized countless children, and you also used it as water torture. You also, to test witches, kinds of nonsense, and in interrogations, those waters are now wreaking their revenge against you for having been misused. That's what's going on. And you use them for forced conversions as well, the waters. This is why you're having water problems. The actual explanation of what natural phenomena translate into what kind of experiences as a result of what particular actions is another video, and I want to keep this as compact as possible. I'm not promising to explain that, I'm just saying that it is involved and can't get into it on just in the space of a couple of minutes. We are now in the Messianic Era. That means that the laws of nature, that means the law of the land and the law of the sea. The Romans had some kind of an idea that they could subvert or avoid the laws of the land by concentrating on the laws of the sea. I want to tell them in no uncertain terms that Elohim is El Hayam. These laws relate to the sea as well and beyond. All of the astronomical phenomena that you're seeing now, anomalies that you don't understand, is also because the rest of the solar system has been brought under these laws as well and beyond. But let's just deal with the smallness of our own solar system for the time being. So you can expect to see changes in all of the astronomical bodies in Earth's sphere of influence. Yes, it is Earth's sphere of influence. Earth and the sun are not different. It kind of appears that way through a lens that breaks things up, but it is all one system. That's it. For the time being, my suggestion to all of you is to play nice. Because from now on, anything you do, be it good or bad, will be compensated by the laws of nature and their considerable power. And whatever you sow, you're going to reap as a bumper crop. So play nice and enjoy your lives. I want peace for all of you, but peace is contingent upon justice, and so the groundwork does have to be justice until everybody takes it upon themselves to voluntarily accept peace. Thank you for listening.